Hey, your streak is on some 7 or 8 now, no? How many? Since you've joined, you've not missed an ep. You're the Deepak Huda of this podcast. Currently, since his debut, India has won 14 in a row, it seems.
Rajesh Chauhan, I think, is the guy who has that record of India not losing any of the tests he has played.
This is true of Karun Nair and Sanju Samson also.
TV umpire to director, we have a player review. Can we rock and roll, please?
Hello and welcome to Bits and Pieces, the friendliest cricket podcast. This is the podcast equivalent of the Goa plans you make with your friends when you get drunk. Everyone's super excited initially, there's much raucous laughter and hilarity, and then you wake up the next morning and ask yourself what the fuck that was all about before trying to distance yourself from it as much as possible. This is episode 32, recorded right in the middle of the long weekend on 14th August 2022. And for once, it seems everyone's Goa plans have come together. So, at the stroke of the midnight hour, while the world parties in Goa, the rest of India shall wake up to Bits and Pieces with the three friends who finally managed to get together and record this episode. And while it seems like a tryst with destiny, based on the opinions we provide on this pod, it's more likely to be a tryst with density. Unless we are talking about Sharjah 98, in which case it would be a tryst with dust in eye. Who can forget the desert storm? But the only storm we'll cover this week is the one we stir up in a teacup. So without a hiccup, let's meet your friends for the day. I am Tony, your host, and I love hot takes, or as you guys call it, Sanju Samson's keeping behind the stumps. Joining me today, first up, he was the vice captain of cricket for Ujjain Engineering College, and he is now the spice captain of cricket on Indian Twitter. He was once the heartthrob of TIS, and he is now cricket Twitter's Fizz. Every time he steps out of a library, the security stops him from leaving because he's a walking encyclopedia of cricket. We love him for his wide and deep knowledge, but even more for the laughs he brings. The man who makes even de Villiers jiggle with laughter with his witty tweets. That's right, he is the AB Sheikh of Bits and Pieces. Say hi, Abhishek Chopra.
I didn't know there was so much to my personality. Thank you so much, Dan.
we are only getting started. But also almost finished because there's only three of us. And rounding up the panel this week, the man after whom they really named Mount Titlis. It's actually Mount Titlis, named so for the butterflies produced in your tummy when this man yodels high up in the Swiss Alps. A man with a voice so rich that he has to declare his entire body weight as Swiss chocolate when he lands home in India. The man who combines chocolate and cricket for maximum enjoyment. The Nestle to the umpire's let's play. The lint to cricket law's fine print. The one who helps you understand the game even when you're watching in a haze. The Toblerone to the show. Blur was on. France may have the haute couture, but we have the hot coverture. The one and only Srinath Sripath. Say hi.
Wow. I was going to look for the Swiss bank or tax reference. I'm glad you didn't bring it up. I'm very happy.
I mean, next episode we'll get to that.
Next week.
Yeah.
Every time the intro gets over, it almost feels like the time for the pod is also over.
Yeah, but thankfully or not, we have only three of us here today. Much like the various mercenaries around, we don't have a central contract and we are freelancers. And usually this pod is allowed 9 outsiders at any given point in time. So, but today is only the three of us. When we left you last week, we left you tantalizingly on the verge of a gold medal for India as they faced off against Australia. But it was not to be. Fell a few runs short. 9, I believe, is the number.
Was it the same margin in the 2017 World Cup chops? Do you remember? Because there were some parallels about the women's ODI World Cup final, which was similar collapse towards the end when everything was going well against England. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, there lots of predictable parts of it, which was the runouts, the mix-ups, and all that. But I also felt really bad for Harmanpreet because she
Yeah.
was batting like a dream, and then she decides to play a scoop that was completely on, and it goes and smashes into the middle of her helmet, and which is a
Yeah.
very classic kind of thing to happen in these calamitous collapses, right? Like when everything falls, like it's also like the luck completely goes against you. And I still feel if she was to around till the end, would have gotten home and dry pretty
Yep.
not easily, but in time before the end of the innings.
Tell the
Yeah, I
truth,
think,
have you been watching Manchester United still? Are you one of the last
Watching
fans really?
Manchester Originals is better idea, I think, these days. Yeah,
Familiar with calamitous collapses of
mostly Manchester Untied these days. So no, man,
Yeah.
depressing scenes. But it was like, I mean, it was a really good game to go back to the CWG final. I felt a lot more like India have been doing in recent times. They're the only ones to challenge Australia like this. Even in the group game, they were really good before they got blown away towards the end once again. But hard luck. I suppose the big match stuff will come as the IPL eventually hopefully launches next year and they play a lot more, because like even in the 100 in the BBL in the former Kia Super League, there are usually 3 or 4 women who make it, the usual suspects: Smriti, Harmanpreet, Deepthi, and Jemima. So it's like only these 4 who are there or thereabouts, and the others don't even get an opportunity to play in these leagues. So
Yeah.
hopefully that comes through next year. That's about all we can hope for, because it's a great lot, right? Like even the fear about fast bowling after Julan and Shika's dropping,
Yeah.
you feel like that's addressed now through Renuka to an extent by Meghna as well. Like it's really good signs overall.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
is it hard luck, or I mean, I think read the stat somewhere, maybe wrong, but it seems right that the Australian women's team have not lost a series in the last 4 years or some crazy
Yeah, that's
stat
true.
like
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, while T20s are random in a format, I think there's seriously a class above, right? Everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Meg Lanning is totally amazing that way. Even during the match when the Jemima Harmanpreet partnership was going on, you could really sense that Meg Lanning was sort of never losing control of the scene, changing her bowlers quite well, and once that partnership broke, they just went for the kill, really well. Yeah, Srinath is right. I think nine is exactly the margin in the 2017 World Cup final as well. And yeah, I mean the collapse was really heartbreaking. Especially, I mean the look on Harmanpreet's face at the end perhaps said it all. And even when Jemima got out, she was not being very fluent with her run scoring, but you know that it only needed her to play second fiddle to Harmanpreet for India to have gone home with the medal. Yeah, just a very heartbreaking loss. The BCCI has come out with a schedule which does have IPL penciled in formally, but I use the word penciled in because it can be erased quite easily. I'm sure that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, it's not inked in.
Yeah, not penned in. Yeah, so I'm not really very hopeful, honestly, because while the league owners have also come out saying that they would want to, or at least a few of them have come out saying that they would want to field women's teams too if there's an IPL that happens. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like England touring Pakistan. Unless it happens, it doesn't happen.
When you say penciled in, you're basically saying to be or not to be. That is the question. Right?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, the final was a difficult watch towards the end. But as Srinath mentioned, I think this is really developing into some sort of golden generation for India. The new players coming in are really good, and I mean, just a question of more exposure, playing in more conditions, and battling it out with the best from the other teams. And I don't think that success is far away. Which also reminds me of Mohammad Azharuddin's very. I mean, some people might think it's okay to do that now that they are getting the chances and they are playing. You criticize them as you would criticize the men's team. But I, for one, definitely think that, I mean, the opportunities that have been given to them are few and far in between. And for someone with Azharuddin's past to say that the match was handed over to the opposing team on a platter, yeah, I mean, it's definitely
We've
not
seen
not
90s
good.
cricket, bro. We've been there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
the
I
platter
think
was gold plated and whatever. I don't know.
the only silver lining or positive, if any, you can take out of that comment is the whole weight of expectation that has been created over these recent years, right? Like
Yeah.
if you go back to the semi, it was the first T20 knockout game they won, I think, outside of the Asia Cup, and that says a lot, right? They've never, even the World Cup semi-final, on the way to the final in Australia was a rain induced handout to them because of the group stage and stuff. So it's a huge thing for this crew that they got that with that 10,000 strong crowd, heavy on local support in Birmingham to do that. And for someone like Sneha Rana, who was, again, she was out of the squad not long ago, a year and a half ago, she hadn't played for 5 years. For her to deliver that final over, that is all like huge positive signs in the right direction, right? Like, so it says a lot about the fact that Azharuddin or some former captain is watching these games first of all, and that says a lot about how it's changed in the last 5 years.
Oh, we have to watch to have an opinion about these things. Is it? Okay, cool. Good, you clarified. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think everyone pretty much agrees if there is a team that can beat the Australian women, it seems like India, right? And they've come like very, very close on quite a few occasions. So hopefully, better scenes, as Harmanpreet said, pretty much that, this team is almost setting up to get there. Hopefully women's IPL happens and we can make that happen. But on the other side, let's look at some hilarity in what's happening on the Australia side, right? Because interesting things have happened. Oh, before we get to the hilarity, Meg Lanning also was stepping away from cricket due to personal reasons. Like unlike the men who are chasing money, this is strictly personal reasons. Which is very, very interesting. I mean, a testament to how much they want and how boring it can get that, you want to give up right on top. Meg Lanning is not to be confused with India's bowling strategy in the last Border Gavaskar Trophy, which was leg manning. Right. So,
beautiful.
Thank you. But moving on to the actual hilarity of the CWG finals, everyone's been talking about the death of ODI cricket for the longest time, but something else has died before that, which is COVID protocols. Guys, what is happening? Talia McGrath, before the finals, was declared COVID positive, but she was allowed to play as long as she doesn't celebrate with her teammates. Am I getting this right?
Apparently, she almost ran into. Sorry, the team pretty much ran into her to celebrate and hug and everything when she took a catch, and then I think it was Beth Mooney doing like this leg jiggle with her to celebrate instead of actually hugging her, and she was doing this whole action. But anyway, it's all like a big show of hypocrisy in that sense, right? Like, we've seen how strict Australia has been with protocols, and now they're basically hiding behind the fact that everyone is triple vaccinated. Then the rules shouldn't apply for anyone else. There was, I believe, an Indian athlete who was banned from going to the games because it was a different case. And in this case, Talia McGrath being Australia's best performer before the finals made them, seek all kinds of approval and get it through. Harmanpreet said at the toss that they had to agree because the Commonwealth had asked them to do so. So basically saying that there was the Federation asking India to do so. Obviously, there's all sorts of counterfactuals. If it were an athlete from the other side, would Australia have agreed, and so on and so forth? But yeah, that's it's funny. It was really, really funny. Even at the medal ceremony, I think they just like eventually decided to put their arms around her, and Mooney came out and said, yeah, if we get COVID, so what now? It's fine.
This is the last straw in how horribly the entire world has dealt with COVID, right? I mean, it's like, it's just so absolutely bizarre and ridiculous. I mean, obviously, Australia is 100% allowed to play Talia McGrath if the authorities that conduct the tournament say it is fine, but there needs to be some kind of basic standard process as we come close to 3 years of this, right? It is absolutely just beyond satire right now.
Novak Djokovic likes this, right? Like that's the other.
Slow Talia.
Slow tal.
The Boult from the blue, which is Trent Boult calling it a day on the central contract in New Zealand. Is it actually Boult from the blue or pink, given that he's with the Royals? Is that actually even pink? Is it fuchsia or something else? Abhishek Chopra, you are the expert on colors. Not because you're an HR and you have experience with Rangoli, but because you're part of the paint industry. I'm not throwing shade at you, only a shade card. You are the Rishabh Pantone of the pod. So why don't you tell us and add color to this and tell us what you think about Trent Boult?
Yeah, to that question, I want to add that I'm actually colorblind. But I did read that the Rajasthan Royals colors is what, peptide blue or peptide pink or something like that.
Oh.
So yeah, I
basically
mean,
Jelusil.
Trent Boult essentially. Yeah, Jelusil. Yeah, that's the perfect way to describe it. That's something that I can also get because it doesn't involve color. Yeah. So yeah, Trent Boult was playing cricket non-stop. Even when he played the recent tests against England, it was right after the grueling IPL tournament, and while no one saw it coming, he's not someone who's like very out there in the press with thoughts and views and opinions like many other cricketers of our day and age are. He was playing a lot of cricket. He was the backbone of the New Zealand bowling attack, and given his age, which is about 33, 32 now, he has decided to let go of his central contract and just say that he is going to freelance across the world. Actually, he ended up saying that he wants to focus more on domestic cricket, which is, I think, a bit of an oddity. I don't think that's his intent. He's still going to be available for New Zealand, but it's going to be
Is it domestic
more of a
cricket or domestic matters?
yeah, I mean, could be the other one. Yeah, yeah. It's going to be a series by series thing for him, where he's going to tell the board whether he's available or not, depending on which league is going on at that time, and whether he's been picked for good money or not. I think that's going to be his modus operandi, and it's not the first time something like this is happening. I mean, West Indies has had this problem for many years that I mean, for lack of better options, they've had to field teams which aren't their A1 teams because people have decided to not even get into central contract. So this is honestly the first time that a cricketer in recent times that a cricketer has actually let go of the central contract from his board while it's been on. So yeah, it's a big one, and it's only a small sign for the future, wherein we'll have more and more cricketers who will perhaps take this route given the burgeoning number of leagues. The other news on this aspect is, I think, Phil Simmons, the ex-West Indian cricketer and the current West Indian coach, has come out saying that he can't beg people to play for the West Indies, essentially referring to guys like Andre Russell, etc., who haven't expressed their availability for the T20 World Cup so far. So yeah, I mean, that's another storm that's in the making. And the other news is the BBL continues to make waves. Now the recent development is that they are looking at moving away from the regional boards, NSW, Victoria, Tasmania. All of these guys own the teams right now which play in the BBL. They are thinking of moving away from this model and getting private investment in, and we know which country is going to be at the forefront of that private investment. It's interesting to know that in Australia too, like in India, you have all the politicians heading these state cricket boards. In Australia, it's mostly guys who are big in business. I mean,
so
I don't know whether it's a Not yet, not yet. For example, the NSW, I think board head is also someone who's made big money in business, and he's also someone who manages Pat Cummins. Uh, those guys are totally up for private investment, but I think the board still wants to hold on to the structure that they have right now because they think that they can, do a turnaround in the fortunes of the BBL. So yeah, I mean, just interesting times. Every week there are so many new developments, and once the FTP comes out, it will get even more interesting.
I think the only logical way out of this is for centrally contracted cricketers to start their own Patreon or buy me a coffee, and basically everyone in the country has to sort of fund them because it seems to be all about the money.
And yeah, I mean, it's going to be something of that nature. And if the UAE league is a success with 9 overseas players, a lot of those teams have started declaring, all their players, overseas players, or some of them at least. If that is a success, I think it's going to be a tectonic shift in how cricket is played throughout the year in different parts of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, money and monopsony.
As so eloquently put by Mohan on last week's pod, I don't think we'll go to that level of depth or frustration at the game this week. But Boult's case, I mean, the defense from New Zealand cricket is that it's a bit of a unique case. Boult has 3 kids and he's had to stay away pretty much the entirety of COVID, living in bubbles, not able to drag his family along with him and so on. Whereas with leagues, it's a lot more, I don't know, the player has a bit more power in what he gets to do. He gets his family along for these leagues and so on. So that's the defense. I'm not very convinced at it. It looks like a lot of players will move in this direction, even among the big 3, right? Like one of the things that was mentioned is Joss Butler, between his contract with the Royals and the South African franchise, will now earn more from those 2 than from his ECB central contract. That is crazy because ECB is, after the BCCI, the second biggest pool of contracts. And I think if you have an all formats contract, might even be higher than what the best Indian player earns. So it's going to be a dance across even the richer countries, right? Like,
one point I want to make here is all of you guys, I'm excluding myself from the list, were basically cheering on for the death of advertising, and see what has happened. Like, I think most of the money cricketers made were from brand endorsements, but now those have died out and we're looking at IPL. See, advertising for the win.
Kind of agree, the sense that the advertisement thing is a very Indian South Asian phenomenon, right? Like Jason Roy is on billboards in Pakistan advertising a telephone company. Like it's probably not the case in England or even in his home county. So it's a very South Asian, unique to this part of the world phenomenon. But the more prolonged problems are in the West Indies with like Andre Russell that Chops referred to. Russell basically took a screenshot of the Cricinfo article and posted on Instagram. Like that's what Johns does usually. It's not Russell, right?
I mean, to be fair, Jones was in the West Indies, so we cannot be sure if he was operating Russell's Insta.
Yeah, so Russell basically shared the headline and the first paragraph and said, I know this was coming, but I'm going to stay quiet. Started off with 3 emojis clapping and 5 emojis of anger at the end. So more mystery, and the amazing and fitting part is Sunil Narayan is in the photo. His thing is even more of a mystery than his spin itself, because the conspiracy theory.
You can't just rush past that. Let's take a moment to appreciate what it's come down to. Yeah, go on.
No, with Narayan, I think the semi-conspiracy theory with a little bit of grounding in truth is he's been called for suspect bowling action multiple times while bowling in international cricket, and hence doesn't want to slip into the ICC's radar, is the theory behind why he continues to not play even in world tournaments. I don't think he made himself available for the previous World T20 also. So his story.
But the ICC can't call him in leagues, is it?
I don't know. I mean, he's been called once or twice with KKR, but I suppose the franchises have a bit more power there. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But what if he bowls with a suspect bowling action but doesn't celebrate with the rest of the team when a wicket falls or something? Is that allowed?
You mentioned Instagram, so the other thing that's happened there is what's going on with Rishabh Pant. RP Bhaiya is the new nickname that he has.
What is this?
So where do I even begin? I don't even know where to begin actually. But okay, there is this like middling Indian actor called Urvashi Rautela who gave an interview in which she mentioned that there was a cricketer who she made for 8-9 hours in a hotel lobby or something. And I mean, there was probably more to the interview. I didn't see all of the interview, but there was something on those lines that she said. And then that prompted a sly tweet from Rishabh. And then I think Urvashi replied to the tweet on Instagram. And that was also sly. And then finally it began, I mean, the game of quote tweeting began. And I don't know what is the latest on it, but yeah, I mean, Rishabh Pant has been making waves, and yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm just worried for him. Things can go wrong pretty quickly. So yeah, let's hope that it doesn't go too bad and he hasn't done anything which is
Yeah.
not cool.
But when it
Already-
comes to relationships, one would assume Rishabh Pant is a great choice because he's a keeper. Okay.
There was someone who said that if he actually stayed outside a hotel room for 8-9 hours, it means he does have the temperament for Test cricket.
I mean, at least like this whole tradition of Indian wicket keepers and conversations continues, right? The previous was the YPU text gate, and this is already an upgrade
Yeah.
on that. So we're getting to a good place, I think.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
KL Rahul's back in the side.
you needed like just a small opening to get that into the conversation.
But did
Yeah.
I get this right? Like Shikhar Dhawan was named captain for Zimbabwe series,
Yeah.
and now that
Yeah.
Rahul became available, he was even pushed to
Yeah.
vice captain or whatever now.
Yeah, precisely. So
Yeah.
I was waiting
Yeah.
for Cows to come on the pod today, just like KL Rahul after a long absence, but he didn't manage to make it. But the latest news is that KL Rahul, after being asleep for a fair amount of time, has now made himself available and has got into the lead and is leading the Indian side in Zimbabwe, in Harare specifically. So this is basically the Harare and the tortoise story, where sleeping Rahul has edged out Shikhar Dhawan.
That way, Dhawan should be the tortoise, right?
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, you think I think through all these things before I put them out. This is not that pod. Like,
Anyway.
but yeah, I mean, interesting scenes in Zimbabwe, right? So basically, we've assembled a team out of which only 4 members will be playing the Asia Cup. Everyone else is just there for jollifying, including Sanju
Just for
Samson.
jolly.
Just for jolly. Including Sanju Samson. That should give you a hint as to how seriously they're taking this.
This is the test,
Also-
is it? Like the barometer of how first team India is decided by whether Sanju is in the team.
Correct. Yeah, if whether or not Sanju's blue jersey turns pink, that is the litmus test, right? So India to Rajasthan.
As opposed to the Sanju in the combox who's not even in these tours these days. It's a bit-
Oh, damn. But I'll tell you how much of a joke this tour is that they are resting Rahul Dravid because he's been coaching too much and sending VVS Lakshman
VVS
instead as
Lakshman.
the head coach. Yeah.
Only room for one Rahul on the flight.
Yeah.
Man, wow. It's I don't know what to make of it. Like apparently India have used some 54 players in the last year and a half, which is
Wow.
Yeah,
absolutely-
so I mean, I don't know. I mean, on the flip side, India finally looks like it has learned how to play T20, right? So this is the
Yeah.
problem. Like when you were obsessed with ICC trophies as the barometer, obviously, like everything else becomes secondary. So like play as much as you want, experiment as much as you want, as long as you'll win the ICC trophy, which no one realizes is basically a lucky draw because T20 is a shit format to have a knockout series for. So, yeah. Till that point in time, I guess Jamie sir is safe. But to be fair, I think India has been playing a very different brand of T20 cricket, right? And it's refreshing to see that.
Yeah, and even the 15 for the Asia Cup with the likes of Arshdeep making it. I know there's a couple of injuries in Bumrah and Harshal Patel and so on, but it's good to see these guys getting in. I know the batting is far less certain. Tony, everything you mentioned, I'll wait to pass judgment on, because if they start with the top three of KLR, Rohit and Kohli at the World Cup after all this, I don't know. I don't know what it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
quick noob question: is the Asia Cup a T20 or an ODI series?
It's a T20.
Oh,
It's
okay.
dependent on which world tournament is there that year. That's how it works.
Oh, like that. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Last time it was, I think, before the ODI World Cup or around that time. They basically that last ball win over Bangladesh. That was an ODI.
Oh, interesting. But before we move on from Zimbabwe, I think it is important to clarify that this Zimbabwe tournament is ODIs and it is a part of the ICC Super League. So till we say that, it's
This is
not
for this is for Nitin if he's listening, to just be clarified that all is good.
Interesting fact about Harare.
We have discussed so much about Zimbabwe without Nitin randomly saying Zimbabwe in the middle of the conversation.
If you have a vice captain in Zimbabwe, is he called a vice captain or a second rasa? Sorry.
Sikandar Raza, as opposed to KL Rahul, is a vice captain. So he's leading Zimbabwe.
Yeah, and he's been in some stunning form, right, of late.
Yeah, he was part of that team which didn't make it to the 2020 World T20. I'd like to say 20, because Zimbabwe didn't qualify for the ODI World Cup before, and then for the World T20 after. So it's like a big year for him because they've now qualified officially for Australia later this year. So he's going well.
I think the other big revelation which happens with most cricketers' books these days is the serializing of excerpts from Ross Taylor's new book, which is timed. I mean, I don't know. He's retired now, so nothing to gain from coming out with whatever he's saying. But I mean, there is stuff about racial sensitivity. There is stuff about the whole changeover of captaincy from Ross Taylor to Brendan McCullum and all the stuff surrounding it. And then there's also something that has come out yesterday or day before yesterday.
No, but I think just to set this up, right, the actual sort of tragic hilarity of the entire thing was the sequence in which the news broke, right? And I think on Monday or so, basically we got to know that Ross Taylor was subject to insensitive racial discrimination within, or banter, or whatever you want to call it, within the New Zealand dressing room. And suddenly you're like, not so nice guys anymore. And then like on Thursday or Friday, it was revealed that basically Rajasthan Royals owner jokingly or not slapped him 3 or 4 times for getting out for a duck, right? So I mean, Indians undoubtedly lead the insensitivity league for sure.
I mean, and I'm yet to get the book, but it seems like it's going to be even more revelations coming out in the next few days. And the part which is very difficult to read, as you mentioned, was the racial insensitivity, and I mean, guys in the New Zealand setup doing it who didn't know of his origins properly, and I mean, stuff about the house help, and just very disheartening. And I mean, Ross Taylor has been one of those guys, whether or not he was batting well, you always felt that he was like a kindred spirit from the rest of, I mean, setting him apart from the rest of the New Zealand team, who were even earlier perhaps not very, very likable. Ross Taylor was someone I really liked, and so for him to have gone through this was perhaps not cool at all. And I mean, even the captaincy thing, how it was just a game of chess and he was almost too innocent for it. And I mean John Buchanan coming out in positive light from the entire scene. Yeah, I mean you always knew that aspect or that part of the New Zealand cricket history was not the most complimentary, not the brightest, but yeah, I mean the details which have been revealed about how Hessen sort of engineered the entire thing. Uh, yeah, just very shocking.
And I think this is one of the things that was called out when Ross Taylor retired recently. And big shout out to Fidel Fernando of ESPN Cricket for who is usually like good with this sort of stuff. He brings it out, not just like paying the tribute to the player, but he also mentioned how the name Ross Taylor itself was a product of his headmaster being unable to pronounce his three Samoan names, which are around the Ross, right? So it's LRPL Taylor. It's Luteru Putua, something Lote Taylor with a Ross in between. And eventually he comes out of it with the boilerplate white person name, Ross Taylor, and everyone thinks he's Kiwi, but he's actually of Samoan heritage. And the whole thing unfolded because his headmaster couldn't pronounce the rest of his names. And that's kind of how the story starts. And it's hard not to make the connections with that and some of the things that he's written in the book. There's obviously lots of controversy around the captaincy, which Shops you rightly pointed out too. But I think the whole thing about someone who is different to the rest of them being treated like this, it's disappointingly something that we've seen plenty of times before. And it's depressing to read it. And he's big props to him that he's had a career that he's had after he played under the McCullum captaincy, became one of the most successful ODI players for a long time. I think he was just behind Kohli during the peak Kohli era in terms of his ODI average and his run making and so on. So huge props to him for resurrecting that career. And I mean, absolutely fair to call it out now that he's hung up his boots.
And not to mention the eye surgery he had in late 2016, right? Basically, when he admitted that for 2 to 3 years I couldn't see the ball swinging during day-night games, which is absolutely crazy if you think about it. And then to have come back, great props to him.
The other thing I wanted to mention was how New Zealand cricket has really, really done well with respect to bringing these sort of marginalized communities in New Zealand into the center, right in front and center of the cricket fold. I was listening to a podcast by these two guys called O'Bone and Heller, British guys, who invited David Leggett, who passed away sadly recently. He was invited to talk about the inner workings of New Zealand cricket by O'Bone and Heller, and this was recorded just before the WTC final. And he mentioned how a lot of work had gone into this, and you felt nice about it. I mean, whether or not you wanted New Zealand to win in the final, you felt nice about it. But yeah, I mean the stuff that has come out, obviously sort of goes against that, and it's just very sad to know. Yeah, the thing about the eye surgery reminds me of, I think it is, if I remember correctly, Asanka Gurusinghe, yesteryear cult favorite from Sri Lanka, who actually went on a tour and kept getting out for low scores. And he was, asked by the coach or the manager at that time, what's happening, and you were in good form a few days ago, whatever. And he actually very sheepishly admitted that he had forgotten his glasses back home.
For real?
I mean, I got to know about this recently, and I mean, it's just hilarious to know.
This is when you need to have contacts at all parts of the world. Right?
Looking forward to the South Africa New Zealand series, and public enemy number one for India. Last time India was touring South Africa, Dean Elgar has come out with a statement saying baseball will leave England with egg on their faces. So pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. I was actually just about to say, speaking of Brendan McCullum, baseball, and apparently, according to some news outlet that Mufadal Vora has reported, South Africa has unofficially banned the use of the word baseball within the team or outside, right? So interesting.
This is very good timing, right, Tony? Like last week, South Africa played a tour game against England Lions, which is like their A team. And a couple of guys who were in the reckoning for the test squad, Harry Brook and less so Ben Duckett, I think, who's played before, but not so close to selection now. So South Africa got beaten by an innings by England Lions, who scored like some 670 odd runs at 5.74 an over or something, which is like
Wow.
absolute hashtag baseball. So obviously they can ban all they want, but they're still getting beat by an innings by a second string English side right now.
Yeah, but actually, the funny part about it is for the WTC standings, I really want South Africa to lose.
I knew it was coming. Well done.
Yeah, yeah.
Go
I
on,
mean,
go on.
a friend in need is not a friend indeed, Elgar. No, but yeah, basically, I would. England is anyway not reaching the finals, so yeah, let England win everything. More power to baseball.
I've always wondered this about the England Lions. If the A team is called Lions, what is the main team called? Shouldn't the A team be called Cubs or something so that the main team can be called Lions?
Of course, it's called the Super Kings. You've not seen the logo.
Yeah, let's
Umesh
talk
is
about
bowling
it.
well.
Let's talk about how cricket has evolved so much that Cheteshwar Pujara is forced to score 22 runs of 1 over. I mean, I saw the highlights of that match, dude. I mean, it looked like a complete fluke. Huh? It looked like Pujara was
Dude,
just.
what are you saying? Come on, man.
No. I don't agree
Come
at
on.
all. Yeah. Proper
You
short
expect.
stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's proper shots, not made for T20 cricket. If you were chasing 22 of the last over in a T20 match, would you bank on Pujara to do it or not? That's the question. Based on
No,
the
absolutely
shots that
not.
you saw. Yeah. So the game has evolved so much that Saini is doing what now? Scoops, you said?
Yeah, Sandy's he's I don't know what it's a funny sort of shot. It wasn't a proper scoop, but yeah, like he shuffled completely outside his off stump and then like whipped it off, but in the air over fine leg for a four. Just like bewildering. I mean, when he bowls, he can't bowl anything else but a beamer. But now in batting, he's like scooping it up merrily.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, scooping it up in bowling as well as batting. Umesh has been doing well, and I mean, Krunal Pandya is, I don't know, Warwickshire or something. He's been picking up wickets for them in the T20 game. So yeah, I mean, good set of performances by
No,
the
it's in
Indians
it's in the same game, Chops, because if you remember,
yeah, I just checked. Yeah,
Indians are not allowed to play T20 anywhere in foreign lands. So this is about as far as they can go. So they can't play the Blast. They can't play any other league.
Any of the
Either.
13 leagues that you guys
Any
named
of the other leagues. So Pujara, basically Krunal ran through the rest of the Sussex middle order except Pujara. So well played to the Che.
Yeah, this is the Royal London World Cup.
Yeah. Doing another Neville Cardis by taking the match apart, picking it apart based on scorecard. I love it.
USP of this podcast.
I think that brings us to the logical conclusion of this episode with 22 runs scored of the last over or the last over that we saw in the highlights, whatever it is. Anything else, guys, or should we wrap up?
No, just rest in peace, Rudy Kotzen. I think absolute legend with the slow death finger. So it's like one of those throwback umpires tragically passed away in a car crash. So yeah, it's just like good memories of him umpiring. There's one of the moments that stands out is that whole Sangakkara innings and the unfortunate end to it, but he had some great times on the field. So yeah, that
yeah. The other thing I remember about him, which was again a super funny episode, was I think it was Makhaya and Ntini bowling to Justin Langer in a test in South Africa, and Ntini was bowling over the wicket. Langer didn't play at one, shouldered arms, and the ball hit Langer right in the middle of stumps. It could have been height or something else, but it almost felt like Rudy was about to slowly raise his finger and give Langer out, and Langer, I mean, his expressions changed completely, and then he started, pushing his arm across himself and signaling that it was, going.
He's a draw. Okay, all right. That's time on this pod as the slow finger of death is raised on us. Go well, Rudy Kodson, and thank you for joining us on Bits and Pieces once again. This is Tony Srinath and Abhishek Chopra signing off for episode 32 of Bits and Pieces. Until next week, bye.
Bye-bye.
TV umpire to director, we have a player review. Can we rock and roll, please?